We are off to Seattle, Washington. Andrea, you're
Hi,
up.
Kat. Hey there.
Hi.
Kat. Andrea Wanerstrand here in Seattle. And you resonated with me when you were talking about HR as the compliance cops versus really that HR joy, the profitability of HR. And I see a real shift in moving away from the resources title. And I've spent the last 15 years in multinationals. So I've seen the pockets of different cultures and those type of things. But one of the things that I think is necessary is to shift from this compliance mindset to really get to that people over everything. And I'm curious what you think are going to be some of the catalysts to help HR professionals as well as HR organizations be able to get to HR as far as joy and people impact and being able to show that business impact the profit.
Yeah. So number one, I love Seattle. The Pink Door is my favorite, one of my favorite restaurants.
Summertime on the deck. Yes.
Yes. I love your sweater. It's a beautiful color, by the way. And third, historically, HR is understaffed. And so, you get into a situation where, hey, we have 50 employees, like, should we hire one HR person? And so I think number one, you need to staff up your HR. I mean, if you're saying that people are your biggest asset, then you should have the correct amount of team members in order to do that. And so what's happening is, like, you get to 50, you get to 100, you hire one person who's now supposed to be responsible for onboarding, offboarding, recruiting, policy, handbooks, and all of the transactional tasks of HR. And so you can't possibly be a gopher and get your head up to see, like, where the organization is going. And so I do think that it takes a proper, a sufficient team in order to get past the transactional work, because then you can start delegating transactional work to, your admins or, your associate level ones. And then as a manager, director, or, CPO, for example, that person should be kind of overseeing the strategy of, are we going the direction we need to be going? What are our, analytics looking like, turnover, engagement, costs, and budgeting? So the biggest problem is understaffed. So I think for every 20 employees, you should have one HR, one person dedicated to HR. And so if you have an organization with 100, you should have at least 3 people on the HR team. So you have your 2 admins or your admin associate, and then you have like a director level. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's like 100 employees, you're the HR director, but you have no one to direct. Yes. Right. And so really you're spending most of your time doing HR admin things. And so then when, a pandemic happens and they have to, like, lay off people, they look at the director to lay off, because, like, now it's like, well, they're not actually doing director level stuff, right? And so we just kind of get stabbed on both ends. Oftentimes we're expected to perform with very little resources. And so obviously compliance, like, you need to have, it's like the Maslow's pyramid, right? You need to get the company out of survival mode in order to understand, like, the psychological safety parts and the personal development parts. So compliance is necessary, but you need to build a team that can just take care of compliance only, while other associates focus on, like, engagement, change management, people management, and things like that.
Yeah, and I'd add on that even the large corporations that have all the, different divisions, that there's still that people over everything perspective and attitude that needs to be in the hiring of the HR folks. Because you're right, at a smaller scale, that person can't span. But even in the public companies, there's still, like Scott was describing, the person who's, I'm not really a people person, but you're in a people person role.
Right.
And I think both scaling and what you're talking about, plus the people over everything type of attitude that we need to see, is where we're going to move in getting our HR joy, and actually for folks to see business impact and that profitability coming out of HR.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should be recruiting and we should be asking questions. If people over everything is my value, for example, I'm going to ask for examples from that person during the interview process. Tell me about a time you did, A, B, and C. And see, we're not really intentional with the recruiting, and so you bring in a person and you really need this person to do the compliance part, and you kind of sacrifice the fact that they, have unconscious bias, or, they have favoritism or whatever the issue is. And then you realize, for example, Andrea, if I was interviewing you for an HR director role and I asked you like, hey, what are your career goals? Right. And if you're like, well, I really want to be an actress. I'm like, well, shit, girl, you in the wrong field. Like this isn't going to work for you then, and I have to have the discipline to know, to say no to you. Right. And know, like, this is not your path. And so we just need so much more intention with people strategy.
I hear you. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you for your question.
We are